of the liver. Okay, then after that we'll do some other nutrition stuff that goes hand in hand with liver and other GI components. Okay, so let me get a quick shout out if you guys can hear my audio okay.
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, you should also let me know if the screen share is not working. Okay, so the liver is the largest internal organ in the body. Okay, weighs about 3 pounds. All right, keyword here is internal. Actually, the largest organ the body has is the skin. Okay, that also happens to be an external structure as well. So largest internal would be liver. Okay, it does have 4 lobes. All right, and here is a view from the front. Okay, you can see the large liver there. All right, you have the right lobe and the left lobe. And then when you flip the liver over, you've got the quadrate lobe. Okay, right there. And the caudate lobe. Okay, right there. So those are the 4 lobes of the liver. Also, the gallbladder is embedded within the liver. Okay, it does work intimately with, the liver works intimately with the gallbladder, the pancreas, the spleen, okay, the stomach, okay, and many body systems. It is important process for digestive and excretion processes. You can look at the liver as one big amazing filter. Okay, now it's got a lot of functions, but that's one of them. Okay, so that's why you have to try to protect the liver by what you consume, because since it is a filter, or it helps detoxify you, if it has to deal with too many toxins over a period of time, then the liver can get hurt, and then you're hurt. Okay, an easy example would be people that take too much Tylenol. Okay, Tylenol is acetaminophen, and a side effect is liver problems if you take too much of it. Okay, another easy example would be alcoholism, or too much alcohol. That can hurt the liver. Okay, the liver is also a storage site, and it can also make new molecules. Okay, that's supposed to say new. It makes new molecules. Okay, here's all the different, in the immediate liver area, all the different parts that are intimately involved with liver, right? So you've got liver itself, spleen, pancreas, small intestine, okay, gallbladder. Okay, the porta of the liver is where you find the hepatic portal vein and artery, so blood vessels that go in and out of it. All right, you're seeing that here. A lot of tubes going in and out of the liver. Okay, since the liver does so many things for your body, as blood is circulating, inevitably everything passes through the liver via the blood. So you've got some major blood vessels that go in and out of the liver. Okay, bile, which is stored in the gallbladder. All right, so there's the gallbladder. So bile is stored in the gallbladder. It's made by the liver. Okay, so the fancy word for liver is hepato, like hepatitis, for example, is inflammation of the liver, right? We have hepatitis A, hepatitis B, all that stuff. And those are illnesses that hurt the liver, but the word hepta is in there, right? So hepatitis, which is the fancy word for liver. So bile is produced from liver cells, hepatocytes. Okay, it's a yellowish brown to green fluid. And its job is to help neutralize stomach acid and emulsified fat. Emulsified fats means it brings water and fat and is able to bring them together so that your body can break down the fat. That is a bile function. Okay, so there's your definition of emulsion or emulsification. Mixture of two liquids that do not normally mix together well, such as oil and water or fat and water. Okay, the gallbladder, which is what we were looking at earlier, that green looking structure, is where liver is, is where bile is stored. Okay, it is smooth muscle. So when food is present in the liver, when food is present in the stomach, and starts to release some of its contents in the small intestine there, the gallbladder picks up on that. Hormones actually pick up on that. And so the gallbladder squeezes. You can kind of picture this gallbladder right now as a water balloon. Okay, and if you squeeze the water balloon, the contents are going to come out. All right, so they come out and they go down the duct and they go into the small intestine there. And it's going to help you emulsify the stuff that's in the small intestine. So it's smooth muscle. Okay, the hormone is cholecystokinin. So shortly after a meal, the gallbladder is stimulated by cholecystokinin, which is a hormone that tells the gallbladder to contract, squeezing the bile into the small intestine. Okay, the pancreas, which is this structure there. Okay, all of that is the pancreas. It produces insulin from the beta cells and glucagon from the alpha cells. All right, so as a reminder, insulin is released when you eat a carbohydrate. Okay, so after you eat a carb or sugar, what you've just done is increased your blood sugar levels. Okay, so blood sugar levels just spike. Insulin's job is to be released from the pancreas, bind to the sugar, and get it into the cells, which means over time, your blood sugar levels decline. Okay, over like the next couple hours or so. All right, so that's the job of insulin. If that is a problem, then we're getting into diabetes stuff. Okay, glucagon, which is also released from the pancreas. All right, its job is to put you in gluconeogenesis. All All right, so glucagon does your gluconeogenesis, which means if you are fasting, if you're not eating a carb, if you're not eating sugar, your body will make it on its own. That's gluconeogenesis. Okay, the acini cells in the pancreas produce digestive enzymes. All right, so when you have food enter into food that, well, the stomach's been removed in this picture. Okay, but if food is in the stomach, and then the stomach starts to release its food contents, which is called chyme, into the duodenum there, the pancreas also picks up on that and releases digestive juices into the duodenum to break down, to continue to break down the food. Okay. The pancreas also helps to neutralize acid. Okay, the liver has its own protective mechanisms. Okay, so we like to call those guys Pac-Mans. Phagocytes. So phagocytes are a type of Pac-Man, and their job is to eat the bad guys. Okay, they eat the bad guys. The specific type of phagocytes in the liver are called Kupffer cells. Okay, they will take out of worn out or dying white blood cells, red blood cells, bacteria, and any antigen. Remember, an antigen is anything that your body thinks is harmful to you. So it's a bad guy. Okay, any questions on any of the liver stuff? All right, I'm going to open the nutrition one. All right, it should be sharing. Okay, so nutrition has a lot of components to it. Okay, starting with what you eat and how you eat. Okay, what you eat and how you eat. All right, so what you eat is very important. What you put in your body is either going to help you or is going to hurt you. And unfortunately, people do consume foods, quote unquote foods, that are pro-inflammatory and harmful to the body. But likewise, there's also people that try to stick with, what's called eating clean. Like fruits and vegetables, lean meats, staying away from too much sugar and artificial foods and stuff like that. All right. All right, so how you eat is how well your body has the ability to mechanically break down food. Some people do not really chew their food completely, so when they swallow their food, they are swallowing incomplete breakdown, and which is harder on the stomach and therefore harder on you. Okay, so chemical and mechanical digestion starts in the mouth. So mechanical is the physical breakdown of food. So like your teeth, for example, do mechanical breakdown. And then you have chemical breakdown. So your body has enzymes that help you chemically break down the food, your digestive enzymes. So your carbohydrates are broken down into monosaccharides, proteins into amino acids, and fats into your fatty acids and glycerols. Okay, absorption is where molecules are moved out of the digestive system and into circulation. And because it's going into circulation, you want the food to be quality food. You don't want inflammatory things or artificial things floating around in your blood. And unfortunately, people do that. And it can create problems. Okay, carbohydrates are mostly polysaccharides. Poly is many, saccharide is sugar. Okay, so your starches, which are plant foods, are polysaccharides. Disaccharides, di is two. So this would be two sugars put together. So sucrose would be an example. Lactose, which is your milk sugar, is another example of a disaccharide. And then your monosaccharides would be glucose, fructose, which is a fruit sugar. Mono is one. Okay, so digestion starts in the mouth. Both chemical and mechanical breakdown. Okay, the mechanical breakdown is your teeth. The chemical breakdown is amylase. Amylase is a digestive enzyme that starts to break down your starches, which is basically breaking down your carbs. So amylase is an enzyme. Then when the food gets into the stomach, the gastric amylase will continue to break down the carbs. Pancreas will assist, releasing its amylase, pancreatic amylase. So hopefully by now, by the time it gets to the small intestine, it's broken down into a very small form of sugar so your body can utilize it. Okay, lipids or fats include triglycerides, your phospholipids, cholesterols, steroids, fat-soluble vitamins. To have adequate lipid digestion, it needs to be able to be emulsified, which is a bile gallbladder liver function. So the large lipids or large fats are converted into smaller lipids. So they're broken down from big fat components to tiny little fat components. Okay, lipase is an enzyme. So anytime you see the word ACE, that's letting you know it's an enzyme. Amylase, lactase breaks down lactose, sucrase breaks down sucrose. So anytime you see ACE, that's an enzyme. An enzyme speeds up a reaction. So lipid ACE or lipase breaks down lipids. Okay, another part of digestion is this micellization process, very important. And that's the ability of your body to create something that gets very tiny. So micelle means small morsel, or you're going from big to very tiny. And this is what you want. This is the micellization process. So that's why if you can chew your food completely and help your body break it down mechanically, it's going to help you in the long run. Okay, the micelles are passed through the plasma membrane. So that's just another way of saying it's able to go from the stomach and be absorbed into the body. So now it can float around. All these different macro and micronutrients can now float around in your body and do their job. Vitamin C has a job, your B vitamins have a job, protein has a job, okay, carbohydrates has a job. So all these different macro and micronutrients have a certain function. So how you eat and what you eat is going to help with that function. Okay, lipoproteins. So it's a lipid and a protein put together. A lipid plus a protein. You have high density and low density. So that's your HDLs, high density lipoproteins, and your low density would be LDLs. Okay, lipids are less dense than proteins. So in other words, if you compare a piece of styrofoam to a piece of lead, which one is more dense? Well, the lead is more dense. The styrofoam is not very dense compared to the lead. So lipids are less dense than proteins. Lipids are less dense enough where they can float in water. Okay, so that's what we mean by density. All right, proteins are broken down into amino acids. There's your word ACE, so your peptidases break down your proteins into their individual amino acids. So when you eat a protein, okay, a protein under a microscope is like this convoluted ball, almost looks like a ball of yarn. Okay, your body starts to unravel it in a polypeptide chain. Okay, so it takes that ball of yarn and takes the string and straightens it out. So there's your polypeptide chain. Then your body comes in and breaks down the polypeptide chain into its individual amino acids. And now you have all these amino acids floating around. The amino acids are actively transported into the cells, and in the presence of certain hormones, your body takes the amino acids and makes a new protein. Okay, this happens in the endoplasmic reticulum, specifically the rough endoplasmic reticulum. Okay, the rough endoplasmic reticulum makes your proteins, your smooth endoplasmic reticulum makes your fats, helps you process fats. Okay, water, about 92% of water is absorbed in the small intestine, and the remaining 6 to 7 to 8% is absorbed by the large intestine. Okay, water does help with nutrient breakdown, absorption, transportation. Okay, water is also something that a lot of people, most people are dehydrated. Okay, so it's important, especially living at altitude where we are in Denver area and a dry environment. You want to try to drink a minimum of 64 ounces of water per day. Okay, cholesterol. Cholesterol does get bad press in our culture. So usually when people think of cholesterol, they go, yeah, thinking it's not good. Okay. But here's the thing, is that you need cholesterol. It's an important dietary lipid, Okay. It makes bile salts. Bile salts make your bile. Bile is stored in the gallbladder. It helps you emulsify fats. It makes your steroid hormones, which are estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Those are your androgen hormones or your steroid hormones. Cholesterol helps you synthesize those. It helps with vitamin D. It's a major component of cell membrane integrity. Okay, so cholesterol is not a bad thing. The reason why it gets so much bad press is because inflammation in the body uses cholesterol to heal and therefore creates a scar known as plaque that can clog your arteries. So cholesterol is just doing its job. So in a way, cholesterol, it's not its fault, it's the inflammation and what the person is doing to themselves fault. And some of that is genetic and some of that is environmental. Okay, genetic meaning sometimes people are born and they just have a genetic predisposition to having certain kinds of inflammatory issues. Their body can't really protect itself. And so then there's problems. Environmental means I drink all the time, I smoke all the time, I'm always stressed out, I don't sleep, I eat like crap, I take lots of drugs, and so therefore you're inflamed. And your body can only take a beating for so long before it starts to get hurt. Okay, that would be an example of environmental. So cholesterol by itself is not bad. It's just certain things that happen to us, and your body will utilize cholesterol to then create bad outcomes, such as clogged arteries. So about 15% of cholesterol comes from diet, about 85% of cholesterol comes from the liver. Okay, TG is triglycerides. Okay, tri is 3. Okay, talk about triglycerides in a minute. But because cholesterol and triglycerides are insoluble in water, they do not circulate very well in the bloodstream, so they need a carrier called a lipoprotein, a lipid plus a protein put together. And those lipoproteins are right here. Okay. HDL is high density lipoprotein. This is the so-called good cholesterol. Your HDL is low density lipoprotein. That's the so-called bad cholesterol, which we'll talk about that in a second, what that really means. Okay, and then VLDL is very low density lipoproteins. All right, so one more time, HDL is the good cholesterol. LDL is known as the bad cholesterol. All right, so this is how it works. I'm gonna try to draw this out. So you have the liver. Okay, and inside the liver, it has your VLDL DLs. Very low density lipoprotein. VLDL, very low density lipoprotein. Okay, the liver will take that and make an LDL and releases it into the body. Okay, an LDL, you can kind of look at it as this carrier protein that has cholesterol inside of it. As it's traveling in the body, cholesterol is deposited to the body. Okay, so now you have all this cholesterol, and cholesterol will go around and do its job. Bile salts, synthesize androgen hormones, cell membrane integrity, and so on. But sometimes you're left with excess, too much cholesterol floating around in the body, and that's where the HDLs come in. That's why these are known as the good cholesterols, because HDL's job is to take the excess cholesterol, collect it, put it in its own carrier protein. So now the cholesterol is collected by the HDL, which is sent back to the liver. The cholesterol is released, remanufactured into LDLs, and then it starts over again. LDLs are released, sends cholesterol to the body. The excess is picked up by the HDLs, which is sent back to the liver, and it starts over again, over and over again. Okay, but because HDLs collect the excess cholesterol, that's why this is the good cholesterol, or known as the good cholesterol. And because LDL's job is to actually release cholesterol into the body, this is known as the bad cholesterol. So as you can see, it's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just doing its job. The problem is, if you get inflammation, then the cholesterol is going to find those areas and start creating plaque. Okay, all those slides I just drew out what those slides are talking about. Okay, so if you get a blood lab, I'm actually going to change this number. This is a bit outdated. You get a blood lab called a lipid panel. Lipid panel. That means they're going to test for your cholesterol. So your LDLs, HDLs, triglycerides, all that. So ideally, you want about a score of 160 or less with your LDLs. Okay. With LDLs, the smaller the number, the better. The smaller the number, the better. So 130 would be better. 120 would be even better. 250 would not be good. So you want to be around 160 or less. HDLs, okay, HDLs, since this is the good cholesterol, the bigger the number, the better. So a good score would be around 60. If it's bigger than that, great. If it's less than that, not so good. So if you have a score of a 20, not that good. So with HDLs, the bigger the score, the better. Which LDLs, the less the score, the better. Okay, the increased levels of LDLs increases your risk of atherosclerosis, which is a type of artery disease, and that can lead to strokes or heart attacks. That's why LDL is known as the bad cholesterol. Okay. So we mentioned earlier that really inflammation is to blame. I would not blame LDL, it's just doing its job. I would blame inflammation. Okay, microorganisms can produce toxins that damage tissue. Prolonged irritation because of chemicals, physical irritants, mechanical abnormalities, like smoking, drinking, drugs. Here's some other stuff: granulocytes, which is scarring, tuberculosis, silicosis, rheumatoid arthritis, polymyositis, which is a muscle.
5.
What? Sorry, someone said something. Didn't quite catch that. Toxoplasmosis, enlarged spleen and liver, so hepatosplenomegaly, swollen lymph nodes, myalgia, so muscle fatigue, calcium infiltration, hyalinization, which is abnormal scar tissue and abnormal tissue repair, cause your LDLs to do their job and create problems because of inflammation. So your body is constantly trying to repair or resolve itself. In other words, if you get cut, the cut eventually heals. If you fight an infection, your body eventually fights it off, and so on. Your body is a self-healing organism. So if it gets hurt, it can repair itself or resolve itself. However, there are limitations to matter. Okay? You can jump off of a 5-foot platform and land on the ground and be fine. You might get hurt, but you'll be fine. But you can't do that off of a 20-story building. You're not going to be fine because of limitations to matter. You can probably get stabbed in the hand and be fine, but if you get stabbed in the heart, you're probably not going to be fine. Limitations to matter. You can get strep throat and you'll overcome it. But you can also get strep throat and it turns into a really nasty infection, and then it affects your heart and it consumes you, and so on. We could do this dance all day where the body has limitations. It is a self-healing organism, but at the same time within limits. So resolution is where the body gets hurt but restores itself to its original function. So that's 100% back to normal. Repair is where the body gets hurt and restores it to almost normal or as close to normal as possible. So repair is the norm, meaning our bodies typically get hurt, but you don't always get full function back. Even if it's 99% full function, you're still missing 1% function. So sometimes people get hurt and it only goes back to 80% function, which means a 20% loss. Okay, and so on. The numbers are going to be variable depending on the person, depending on the nature of the injury. Okay, here's an example of the cholesterol stuff I was talking about earlier. Okay, so if you take a look here, we're looking at a blood vessel. And the blood vessel has the tunica intima, so that inside lining. And then you notice there it's cracked. So here it is enlarged. The body goes, no problem, I can fix that. But guess what it uses to fix it? You guessed right, lipids. LDLs. So is LDL to blame? No. The injury is to blame. What caused the injury? Things like hypertension, so high blood pressure, smoking, too much fat floating around in the bloodstream, hyperhomocystinemia, so incomplete breakdown of proteins, other hemodynamic factors, toxins, viruses, abnormal immune responses. Okay, that is not an exhaustive list, but just some things to take into consideration why the blood vessel might be hurt. Okay, what happens is the body detects the injury, starts to bring in inflammatory mediators and your lipids, your LDLs, and it starts to create plaque. So as you can see, the blood vessel is starting to clot. What happens is typically the person does not remove the inflammatory processes, so it gets worse over time. The intima continues to get cracked and fissured, more plaque, more cholesterol comes in, okay, and eventually you're going to get a clot, which means a heart attack or a stroke. Okay, here's another picture showing the same thing. Okay, so keep in mind we're looking at this process, damage to the blood vessel. So step one, LDLs come in. LDLs enter. Step two, they get oxidized, pro-inflammatory lipids. So now they change and turn into pro-inflammation. That means they start to recruit monocytes, T lymphocytes, and those monocytes come in. So here they are, the monocytes come in, and then they start to differentiate into macrophages, taking the LDLs, creating foam cells. So it releases the foam cells, recruiting more cytokines, and this creates your plaque, known as a lipid pool. So this is why LDLs are known as the bad cholesterol. However, in my opinion, that's a little bit of a mislabel because LDL is just doing its job. Now think about this. Even if a person is on high cholesterol medication, they still have cholesterol in their body, which means if the inflammation is still there and all the damage we just talked about is still there, it's still going to do its job even if you're on cholesterol medication, because the cholesterol stuff isn't the problem, the inflammation is the problem. So once you nip the inflammation, things like this in the bud, okay, once you get that under control, then the person will do better. All right, any questions on that so far? Okay. All right, saturated fats versus unsaturated fats. Okay, saturated fatty acids accumulate in the liver. Saturated fats are also found in animal fats. Okay, so to some degree, I do think a person has to watch what they eat. If you eat meat, I think it's fine. You just have to, in my opinion, you'd have to just do quality meat, not processed meat, and then do lean meat. Okay, and if you're a vegetarian or vegan, that's fine too. You just have to be careful to make sure you get your proper amino acids, because a lot of our essential amino acids are found in animal products. And if you're not consuming animal products, then you have to be more strategic in your diet to make sure you get those essential amino acids. Okay, so sometimes those are personal decisions to be vegetarian, vegan, or not, and sometimes it's for health reasons. Just depends on the person, but whatever you decide, just do it right. Okay, healthy foods, healthy ratios, that kind of thing. All right, unsaturated fatty acids are found in most vegetable oils and can enhance secretion of cholesterol. Okay, unsaturated fatty acids and hydrogenated foods create trans fatty acids. Trans fatty acids can increase saturated fatty acids, creating more LDLs, less HDLs, which is the good cholesterol, creating unhealthy ratios and putting you at risk for atherosclerosis, blood vessel disease, heart disease, and so on. Trans fatty acids are found in fried foods. So yes, your French fries are going to have trans fats, and in the long run, those are not good for you. They're good on the taste buds, man. Think about that. Some French fries with some ketchup, it's amazing on the tongue and taste buds. But once it gets into the stomach, biochemically, not good. Okay, the other thing is you want omega-3s, which is an essential fatty acid. Okay, essential fatty acids can help lower cholesterol, can also create healthy platelets, helps lower blood pressure. So if during pregnancy, so baby in utero, can help the developing baby tremendously, can help reduce postpartum depression, reduces inflammation, increases plasma membrane integrity, increases cell-to-cell communication, and can increase your mental capacity by taking fish oil, omega-3s, an essential fatty acid. Okay, other factors that can affect cholesterol: smoking, stress, too much coffee. Okay, coffee is okay, but once you start exceeding, or let me say that better. It's recommended you can have up to 3 cups a day of coffee. Once you exceed that, then you can get too much caffeine and all these other things, so that can create some problems. But up to 2 to 3 cups of coffee a day is fine. Sedentary lifestyle and other pro-inflammatory diets can affect cholesterol. Okay, the medical solution is to put people on statin drugs, alternative medical, dietary changes, lowering inflammation, stress management, exercise, supplements such as those omega-3s, and different therapies. So this can be summarized in diet and lifestyle. Okay, your basal metabolic rate. Okay, this is the amount of energy you need to survive. You can kind of look at this as if you were in a coma, how many calories does it need to keep you alive? That's your BMR. Okay, your thyroid hormone is also responsible for BMR. So BMR, basal metabolic rate, is largely genetic, also influenced by diet and lifestyle. Okay, total metabolic rate, or your TMR, is your basal metabolic rate. So how many calories do you need to survive plus your daily activities? So compare a person that just sits on the couch all the time, very sedentary, they don't really do anything, and compare that with a person that runs and lifts weights and plays sports and skis and all that stuff. Well, you can tell the total metabolism is going to be different because of caloric expenditure. Inactivity versus activity. So that's your TMR, total metabolic rate. The rate at which you burn fuel based on how active or inactive you are. It is recommended at a minimum to exercise 30 to 45 minutes, 3 to 5 days a week. This could be as simple as brisk walking. Okay, calories comes from the amount of energy needed to raise the temperature of 1 kilogram of water 1 degree Celsius. So, in other words, it's energy, right? Okay, so 1 carbohydrate has 4 calories per gram. Protein has 4 calories per gram, and fat has 9 calories per gram. So if a person has 35 grams of protein 50 grams of a carb and 10 grams of a fat, how many calories did they consume? Well, you would just do your math, right? So 35 grams of protein, so it would be 35 times 4. 50 grams of carbs, so 50 times 4. And 10 grams of fat would be 10 times 9. Okay, then you would add that up and get your calories. Okay, that's calorie counting. Some people are into that. I coach people on that because, you know, one of the things we do is functional nutrition. So people are in there to try to lose whatever the goal is. It's usually to lose weight. Okay, like the last person I just worked with had to have a knee replacement, but the surgeon said we are not doing a knee replacement until you lose 60 pounds. Now, keep in mind, I've been trying to get this person for forever to lose weight because they've been asking, oh, I want to lose weight. Well, here's what it looks like. Oh, I don't want to do that. Okay. Next time, I need to lose weight. All right, here's what it looks like. I don't want to do that. Now their knee is shot and they have to have a knee replacement. I'm not doing a knee replacement until you lose weight. Then they come back to me. I want to lose weight. Well, what sparked the motivation? I need a knee replacement. They won't do it until I lose weight. You think? Yeah, that's right. Have a knee replacement with too much weight, you're going to bust the knee replacement. So, of course, they want you to lose weight. Well, now they're motivating. Teach them how to read calories, modify their diet, et cetera, and lo and behold, booyah, lost weight, had the surgery, doing fine. Okay, so there is a way you can count calories. Okay, just a very general recommendation. Everybody's going to be different depending on their goals, what they want, what they need. So about 55% of your diet can come from carbs. About 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight can come from protein, and up to 30% of the diet can come from fat. Okay, this is very flexible, just depends on the goal of the person. But you don't want to sit there and eat all carbs. You can't sit there and eat all proteins, and you can't really sit there and eat all fats. So there has to be some sort of division, some sort of breakdown, and there's a way to do that depending on the goal. Okay, any questions on any of that? All right. Next week is